The 2007 Daytona 500 was the 49th running of the Great American Race. It took place on February 18th, 2007 at the Daytona International Speedway in Daytona Beach, Florida. The 2007 edition of the race had an astonishing 61 cars attempt to qualify for it. This sent 18 drivers home, and there were some big name teams and drivers on that list, including 3 former winners of the Daytona 500. The 1990 winner Derek Cope missed the race. The 2002 winner Ward Burton, driving for Morgan McClure, missed the race. And 2-time winner Bill Elliott, driving for Front Row Motorsports, also missed the race. Some other notable drivers and teams that missed the race were Brian Vickers and AJ Allmendinger, driving for Red Bull, as well as 2 Bill Davis racing cars with Mike Skinner and Jeremy Mayfield. The 10-time ARCA champion Frank Kimmel, as well as rookie Paul Menard driving for DEI. Robert Yates Racing would sweep the front row of the race, with David Gilliland scoring the pole position and his teammate Ricky Rudd right alongside.
DW, I've been waiting about 7 or 8 months to tell you this, buddy. It's going to be a wild ride. Next time by, over 180 miles per hour, 2 wide, 3 ride. Reach up there and pull those belts tight one more time. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Oh, yeah, boys, let's go racing.
Man, oh man, the sound of these Gen 4 cars at the super speedways back then was unreal. It's like music to my ears. They just sound so freaking good. Jeff Gordon, who started deep in the field, as he would be the first driver to find himself into trouble. He would slightly brush the wall in turn number 2, but it was very light contact and basically no damage done to the car, and he would easily continue on without any issues.
Top of your screen, right corner, here he comes.
Just ran out of racetrack there at that turn 2, which is the worst turn we have here. You just run out of racetrack.
The first caution flag of the day would wave on lap 16 when Boris Said would spin off at turn number 2 down the back straightaway. He would go into the infield after contact with David Rudiman, but he would not hit anything else and would be able to continue on in the race. Boris did an impressive job racing his way into the Daytona 500 during his qualifying race.
Watch the number 60, bottom of your screen.
On the bottom. Wow.
It just looked like that car had that 4-wheel drift up off the corner onto the backstretch.
It's almost what happened to Michael in the qualifying race when he got into Dale Jr. That thing just took off, baby. Bam, just like that.
First caution of the day in Daytona.
David Gilliland has led every lap so far, and he would bring the field down to pit road. He would not win the race off pit road though, as Kurt Busch would take the lead of the race for the restart.
A look from our DLP HD cam, floating cable mounted over the speedway. Phil Parsons was the honorary starter, waved the first green flag. The second one is in the wind. Kurt Busch out front.
It was a single file restart since all 43 cars that we have out there are still on the lead lap.
In the shadows of turns 1 and 2 on the west side of the speedway, they pop back into the sunlight. Exiting 2 down the backstretch, that's where the wind whistles right at them.
As you can see, back then NASCAR still had single file restarts, and they were pretty uneventful, especially early on in the race with no lap cars down to the inside. This would be the second longest green flag run of the day, and what was pretty interesting back then is handling was a huge part of racing at Daytona. This was before the track was repaved, and just over 20 laps into this run, you could see the separation between the drivers. And it started to become pretty apparent that Kurt Busch and Tony Stewart may have the best cars in the entire field. As you can see how important handling really is, as Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon both got into the wall.
There he is up behind Jimmy. And you know what? I think it looked like something happened to Jimmy Johnson because I saw smoke come out of his tailpipe. Let's see if he lets off. Oh, yeah, he let off.
And he hit the wall as well.
And that sucked Gordon in there with him.
Tony Stewart, after following Kurt Busch for basically the last 30 laps, would finally make the move on lap 48 to take the lead of the race, as he had a little bit more help behind him, as David Gilliland and Ryan Newman were closer to him and Kyle Busch.
Behind the two, and more than likely they could both. They're both going to go right back by Kyle. That's why he wanted to help Tony as much as he could to try to keep that from happening.
Green flag pit stops would start on lap 62, but the leaders Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch would come in on lap 65 to complete a green flag pit stop. I have to be brutally honest here, so far this race has been very boring, which is something you just don't really see at Daytona. And I'd feel really bad for you if you got bored and turned this off, because who would have known at the time that one of the greatest finishes in the race's history was gonna happen? This would basically conclude the cycle of the green flag pit stop, and Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch were literally in a league of their own, all by themselves drafting together leading the race. I remember watching this race and thinking, man, this could be the year that Tony Stewart gets it done, and it seemed pretty clear that this race was gonna come down to Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch. But as you know in racing, things don't always work out like you think they're going to. With tires at their freshest state and a little bit of single file organization, a whole group of cars was able to catch up to them obviously, but they still remained in a single file line. During a commercial break, the caution would come out on lap 80, and this whole pit stop sequence here was definitely the most exciting part of the race to this point.
We're under the second caution of the day at Daytona. Problem on Kyle Petty's car, which we'll show you in a moment. Right now, pit stops are the order of the day. Here is Kyle. The damage to Kyle's car is to the right rear. Krista?
Kurt Busch needs his Miller Lite Dodge to be just a little bit looser. The way they're going to solve that is by going up just a bit on the track bar. Kurt saying he can get to Tony. He just can't get up there and stick. Steve?
Krista, Kyle Busch just told his crew, I ran over something going 200 miles an hour. Check the valence, Dick.
Tony Stewart has just stalled his car on pit road. There's an accident directly in front of him. The Chevette car sideways in front of him as well. Stewart finally out of his pit. Matt.
Slight chassis adjustment for Kevin Harvick. One end of the racetrack, there's shade. He's a little loose on the turns 3 and 4. He's tight. They feel lucky, though, because Dale Earnhardt Jr. says that a part of the metal has hit his race car. He has asked his team to take a good look at it, as well as his spotter, Steve Meal. Back to Dick Bergeron.
And there is a potential problem with Tony Stewart's car. He said that as they are going around under caution, under slow speeds, the oil pressure drops to 20 pounds. So he is going to change gear under those caution flag laps to try to keep the oil pressure up so he doesn't starve the engine of oil.
Well, let's go back to where all this started. And then we have the dust up on pit road as you see Tony Stewart. Kyle Petty, debris came off Kyle's car when he had a tire problem. Tony ran over some of it. And then this.
That's serious right there. That's that right front fender that he had problems with in the qualifying race. And the Bud shootout, I'm sorry, that he had to get fixed before he could run very well.
And it also blocked Tony Stewart in a 20 car. He almost was involved in that, but they were heads up enough to stop. And that's whose shoulders I put this whole thing on. That driver can't make that call buckled in that race car. It has to be on the shoulders of the crew chiefs and the spotters.
That's Kyle's spotter. And after Kyle dropped that tire in those metal pieces, look at Tony Stewart, top of your screen, running right over it.
I'm surprised the spotter didn't give him a heads up on that. Maybe he did and we don't hear it, but I'm surprised. There's debris back there. Man, that was serious.
Pretty wild sequence of events there, which made this race pretty interesting, as Tony Stewart, who is clearly the dominant car of the day so far, had multiple issues on that pit stop. The running order would shake up a bit. Kevin Harvick would win the race off pit road, and he would lead the field back to the green flag.
But there's about 3 or 4 guys that are have been consistently at the front. Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Ryan Newman, they've been there all the time.
So Stewart and Gilliland will have to come from the back along with Jimmy Johnson, who made another pit stop for the lead. Kurt Busch on the outside, trying to lead for the second time today. Little brother with a helping hand.
Now with help from brother, here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the 8 car along with Jeff Burton in the 31. They're trying to help Kevin Harvick in the 29.
Speeds continue to build on the full lap of the restart. And look at the outside lane, full head of steam. Here comes Jeff Gordon with David Stremme and Denny Hamlin in the FedEx car.
That happened because they had the inside line slowed down from the bump.
Who's your brother right now?
This restart was a little more exciting than the last one, as Kurt Busch made the move as soon as he got to the backstretch on Kevin Harvick and got a little help from his brother Kyle Busch to take the lead of the race, and this created some pack racing. But this would also kick off the longest green flag run of the entire race of 70 laps. The field will eventually get all strung out in single file again, and they would have to make green flag pit stops once again. They would begin with 75 laps to go, but leader Kurt Busch, who hasn't relinquished the lead since taking it from Kevin Harvick on that restart, would come in 2 laps later with 73 laps to go in the Great American Race. After another round of green flag pit stops, things tend to tighten up a little bit when everyone's car is handling good and they can draft with one another much easier. Since that restart, Tony Stewart, as I said, one of the best handling cars in the race, was looking to go for the lead on Kurt Busch with only 52 laps to go in the race.
Boys, don't look now, but Tony Stewart, he has friends behind him. It's taken him almost 60 laps, but he's up there battling Kurt Busch in the 2 for the lead. He was 40th, 60 laps to go in that 20 car, and he's going to get the lead going down the backstretch.
Can if Truex can get up there and give him a little help. But here comes his, well, I don't know. I thought Kyle would jump down there and help Kurt, but he didn't. So far, he hadn't.
That's at least twice that we've seen Kyle Busch in the 5 car jump up there with Chevrolets and leave his brother. But now he looks like he's coming back to the bottom as Johnny Sauter in the 70 moves into the picture.
Oh, you can change your mind several times going down into a corner depending on where they are on the track.
Who'll lead this lap? It'll be Busch on the inside, but Stewart appears to have more help.
Getting tight, boys. Things are tightening up. You know what, Larry? The sun's going down. I know it's not hot, but the sun's going down. I believe the grip might be picking up just a little bit.
And how about that Army car, that 01 car, Mark Martin? He's worked his way up in the thick of this pack, sitting there running in 7th position with 50 laps to go.
And he had been in the wall. I saw the right side of that car on that last around the pit stops. Mark had been in the wall pretty good, but looks like it didn't hurt the Hamlin any.
Tony Stewart, for the first time in the last 70 laps, is going to lead the Daytona 500 for the second time today. Anyone surprised?
How we doing here, Hawk?
Not really. I'd say you're doing pretty good there, Smoke.
At this point, this is when I really thought that Tony Stewart was going to be very hard to beat. The broadcast even showed one of these promo videos going to commercial with Tony Stewart, but as soon as they would come back for commercial, the whole complexion of this race would flip upside down.
Crash in turn 4.
Man,
and there in the midst of it sits Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch, the 2 leaders.
I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe Tony got a little loose all at once.
Kurt Busch, the 2 will go straight to the garage, Jerry.
I'm worried about you. I ain't worried about that car.
That was Greg Zipadelli, Stewart's crew chief. And the strongest Chevy and the strongest Dodge in Daytona are wrecked.
Let's watch it. I don't know if Kurt got into the back of Tony or not. Let's wait till we get around here and see. Tony's car just Tony hit the apron. He got down on the apron. He got a little bit loose. Kurt was all over the back of him, and there he goes.
Tony's dropped the window net on his car. That's a signal to safety workers that he is okay.
And just like that, the 2 favorites and clearly the 2 best cars for the entire race so far are taken out simultaneously in an accident. Tony Stewart made one little mistake touching the apron, knocked his car loose, had to get out of the gas, and Kurt Busch unfortunately ran right over him and ended up taking both of them out. This must be a very rough one for Tony Stewart to look back on, and definitely one of those victories that got away. This would bring everyone down pit road for a pit stop, and Martin Truex Jr. would lead Mark Martin on the restart.
But here he is driving for Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, leading the field down for the restart with 41 to go.
And that team really came on strong at the end of last year. Martin Truex with Bono, Mannion, crew chief. They were really finished up strong last year.
Finished second at the final race at Homestead Miami Speedway, but now we've got 41 laps to go in the Daytona 500. One car you'll see missing at the front of the pack, 99 Carl Edwards, came in running third. They had a penalty on pit road for rolling a tire across pit road. He had to go to the tail end of the longest line. Hard fight for that 99 car now.
Well, he's got some company back there because Gilliland got back on the lead lap. We know he's fast. Maybe they can get hooked up and work their way back to the front.
Inside line, big head of steam. Matt Kenseth leading them down the backstretch. Martin down to block. Kenseth goes high.
I mean, Kenseth went to the bottom and all the way back to the top in that 17 car.
A combination of the two best cars being removed from contention, the sun setting and cooler track temperatures, as well as getting down to the end of the race and the urgency picking up. The pack would not get strung out at all, and they would remain in one big pack the whole time since the restart. And with the laps winding down, I think you know where this one's going.
But they got a nose under him. Mark gave him some room, and there
Well,
they go.
there's Jimmy Johnson, the 48 car.
Hard
Here we go.
Tony Raines with him. Denny Hamlin.
That was inevitable. It had to happen. You can't be this late in the race, be bunched up like that, and not have trouble. Holy cow, did you see that shot?
Watch 66 in the middle. Nope, it's in front of him. It's
48 car just lost it.
Gosh. Right.
I mean, right in the middle of the straightaway.
I mean, it's almost like a tire went down or something, because a car, to make a move like that, either something broke, a tire went down, because a car doesn't move like that on the straightaway. 11 car going by there, Denny Hamlin. He got damage, as we saw. Oh, there he starts way back up in there. He gets loose coming off. That's got to be a flat tire. Man, he hit that outside wall a ton.
And just nowhere for all these guys to go. There you see, they just started stacking up on the inside.
And where Johnson hit the wall was after where the safer barrier in turn 2 ends. So he hit the concrete.
The first big crash of the day would happen with Jimmy Johnson getting loose and triggering it. Everyone would hit pit road during this caution, and this is when we would see Mark Martin in the lead of the race for the restart.
DLP Ultimate Picture Cam above the start-finish line at Daytona International Speedway. Night falls, 21 laps to race.
20 laps ago, Carl Edwards, the 99, restarted at the tail end of the field. Now he's restarting up in second.
The guys, the possibilities of who could win this race keep changing every 5 laps now.
Watch the speed build on Mark Martin.
Reed Sorensen sitting there in third, and Johnny Sauter, and look out, old Red's coming on the outside.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. in that 8 car, he's getting help up there.
And he's got friends, because everybody will go with him.
But he left his friends. We went back to the bottom. He was getting a push from Greg Biffle in the 16, still getting it.
Well, what'd we say at the start of the day? That yellow line is your best friend.
You still have the help. Clear high.
Carl, be careful. I know you don't want to get past, but you got yourself in a bind, dude.
Now you see Kyle Busch in the 5 car. He's going to push on Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the 8 car.
After this restart, it would only take 7 laps for another big crash to happen. Unfortunately, this time it happened during a commercial break. And this one is kind of bizarre, not an accident that you would see regularly.
Right there, they get all wadded up, and the 25 and the 99, and 99 gets in the fence. 26 was involved. Jamie McMurray in the 26, Carl Edwards in the 99. See Joe Nemechek in the 13 bumps into Carl, but in the meantime,
this was not quite what brought out the caution. Watch the yellow cat car.
He gets forced into the pit lane. Here's what I don't think he realizes. He's got a flat right front tire.
150 miles an hour. Blaney is trying to scrub off speed.
And just nowhere for Ken Schrader, the 21 car, to go.
Or Boyer in the 07 car.
Lots of cars getting sideways due to contact. Dave Blaney gets knocked down pit road to essentially avoid an accident, which is completely legal. He goes down pit road but doesn't realize his right front tire is actually going flat. So when he gets back to the racing surface, instead of easily being able to keep it down on the apron of the track, doesn't fully turn left the way he wants it to, and ends up going right in front of Ken Schrader and taking poor Kenny Schrader right out of the race. The leaders would stay out on the racetrack, and Mark Martin would lead the field back to green with only 10 laps to go.
All right, we're coming to get to green, and what Mark needs to do is he goes through the restart here just like normally. Get it back into 4th gear down here in 1 and 2. and then you drag the brake just ever so slightly to keep those cars behind you right up tucked underneath of you, because if they do get a run, they will blow by you. And see how that's exactly what Mark is doing. He's keeping the 16 right close by. Don't let him get too much of a run, because
so a big lead right now would be bad.
Oh yeah, no, you're a set and duck if you get way out there.
They kicked Martin Truex Jr. in the one car up out of line. Kyle Busch below the yellow line. As long as he does not advance his position and gives it back, he'll be okay.
Kyle Busch was not penalized for that move, by the way. It was deemed legal by NASCAR. And with only 8 laps to go, Mark Martin is still out front. And you would notice that Kevin Harvick is in the 15th position and nowhere to be found at this point of the race. With only 5 laps to go in the race, the final caution flag would come out due to trouble on the backstretch involving Dale Earnhardt Jr. and others.
500. What do you think? Oh, there's a car in trouble.
Jamie McMurray, the 26 car, bounces off the outside wall.
And around they go.
Ricky Rudd, the 88 car. Caution will be out.
Dale Earnhardt Jr.
And remember, when the caution comes out, at the moment of caution, the field is frozen.
I think.
Watch the right side of your screen. McMurray up high.
I think he may have got a little shove from behind. I'm not sure. It looked like that's Kenseth in the 17.
And they just started stacking up from there.
Yeah, the 88 car looked like Rudd just kind of ran in the back of the 26 of McMurray, and boy, from there on, it was on.
I think Rudd had a car to the outside, Darrell. Probably not much he could do.
Probably couldn't.
As a result of this accident, NASCAR elected to throw a red flag as the race was going into a green-white checkered finish anyways, and there was no sense of having everyone just ride around under yellow for an extended period of time.
These teams, this is the 2 laps these guys have been working for all winter long and for months even before the 2006 season ended.
When the green flag waves, the race is on. If the caution waves, it's over. If they complete the 2 laps, it's over. Martin, Busch, Biffle, Gilliland, Sadler, green flag.
I don't believe he can wait very long, Larry. I believe if you're going to make the move, you got to make it quick. I don't think he can wait too long. If they're going to get him, they need to jump to the outside right away.
If he's going to go.
Still single file.
White flag, 1 lap to go.
Coming to the white, man. Coming to the white. Single file behind him.
Front 4, single file.
Here they go. They got to go. They got to get Mark moved. They got to move him somehow.
He gets back to that yellow line right around the bottom, all the way through turn 1 and 2.
Mark Martin is driving the race of his life, and there's nobody that's better at holding people off at Daytona.
And Kyle Busch lagged back a little bit. Is he going to get help? Is he going to come? He's looking.
Back behind you.
He almost squeezed Harvick into the wall, and here comes Harvick, the 29, with Matt Kenseth.
Oh, Mark got loose. Mark got loose.
And Harvick's getting a run off turn 4. It's going to be a drag race all the way back to the start-finish line. No caution. They're side by side, right to the line.
Big crash. Here they come. Checkered flag. Harvick. Kevin Harvick wins the Daytona 500.
We got one car on his roof coming across the start-finish line.
They're still wrecking. They're wrecking everywhere. Boyer's on fire. Jeff Gordon's wrecked.
And they are still wrecking.
Montoya, Stremme, Kenseth, Biffle, Marlin, Carl Edwards, Casey Mears all crashed on the final lap.
On that restart, I'm pretty sure 99% of NASCAR fans would have loved to see Mark Martin win that race, and it really looked like he had them covered. But Kevin Harvick just literally came out of nowhere on the outside with a huge push from Matt Kenseth, got alongside Mark Martin. They wrecked behind him, leaving them the only 2 cars to side draft each other to the line, and Kevin Harvick would win the Daytona 500. I started making this video the other day before Kevin's retirement announcement, and I think it's only fitting to celebrate Kevin Harvick as a driver and how he's definitely going to be a future Hall of Famer. But at the same time, such a heartbreaking moment for Mark Martin. He's come up short so many times in the championship battle, and unfortunately he came up short in the Great American Race. At the time of this race, this was the closest finish in Daytona 500 history in the age of digital timing and scoring, and then years later Denny Hamlin would beat Martin Truex Jr. to the line for the closest finish in Daytona 500 history. But what started out as a pretty boring race turned out to have an incredible finish. That's going to wrap up today's video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel for more classic NASCAR content just like this, and I hope to see you guys in my next one. Take care, everybody.